know that's not true today. And the more and more that we learn, now those of us who have heritage to the Aztecs and to the Maya and to the Native Americans, we know they were never savages. They were more civilized than the Spanish who showed up. Their technologies of water filtration, sciences, mathematics, astrology was superior. But I'm saying all this because Montezuma was the prophet of the time. He was the leader. And so everyone's heard that Montezuma was killed by the Spanish, or the Spanish say that the Aztecs killed him. That is not true. Montezuma was never killed. And here's what Cortez said in his letters to the king. Here's what Cortez said. I told 2 of the Indians that were captive to carry him on their shoulders to the people. What they did with them, I don't know. Only that war did not stop because of it. So because Montezuma was hit in the head with a projectile, but that was a setup. Montezuma's brother, who in fact, let me back up. Montezuma, when he was held by the Spanish, they also held Montezuma's brother. The entire markets of the entire Tenochtitlan land were shut down. Food, commerce, everything was at a halt. The Spanish said, hey, we're gonna die if we don't get any food. We're gonna die. So Montezuma said, release my brother. I'll instruct him to open the markets and get the commerce happening. Everything will be fine. Cortez let his brother go. And of course, his brother did not go open the markets. He went and got all of the warriors and they said, now is the time that we attack. So when Montezuma was struck in the head, this was by his own people, one of his own lords actually. And it was just a superficial wound. And Montezuma, Cortez and those guys said, hey, let's get you some help. Let's get the doctors to look at you. And Montezuma said, no, I'm dying. But here's what Bernal Diaz said. The emperor's death came to Bernal Diaz as something of a surprise. When we least expect this, now this is quoting Bernal right here. When we least expected it, they came to tell us that he was dead. He added that Father Almeida did not believe he would die from his wounds. Right? This is their own documents of it. So Montezuma had fooled the Spanish. Montezuma, once again, high priest, master of herbs, master of medicines. He could have just nibbled on a little something that made him look like he was dying, but he did not. Now, before Cortez ever arrived, there were 8 omens that Montezuma received, and it's impossible for me to cover them in detail completely. Like I told you, Montezuma was the highest spiritually attained individual. I'm not claiming he was Jesus Christ level, but he was the highest level of esoteric spiritual attainment, and he absolutely was connected to the divine. Contrary to what you've all heard, he was not a murdering, nonstop person. He was very spiritually connected. This is the narrative. Remember, the Spanish narrative has to be that they were savages, has to be that they were killing all the time because they were doing God's work, and they must have a reason for annihilating them or attempting to. So 8 omens. A bright fire fume, likely a comet, appeared in the sky. The temple of one of their gods of war and the sun caught fire and could not be extinguished. Lightning struck the temple without thunder setting ablaze on a calm, misty day. Omen number 4, 3 fiery objects, possibly meteorites, streaked across the sky, accompanied by a roaring sound. Number 5, Lake Texcoco mysteriously swelled, causing waves and flooding part of the capital. Omen 6, a ghostly weeping woman's voice was heard at night, laminating the fate of her children. 7, fishermen captured a strange bird with a mirror-like surface on its head, showing visions of foreign warriors. In Omen 8, a 2-headed man appeared only to vanish when brought before Montezuma. These were 8 omens that Montezuma, being the spiritual individual that he was, interpreted. By the way, there has been an ancient prophecy from before they ever arrived in Mexico about how their civilization would end. This was something that Montezuma carried with him, that there was an end prophecy of the 5th world. And Montezuma was aware of this. So Montezuma, understanding all of this 10 to 12 years before the Spanish ever arrived, began moving the treasures northward back to where their homeland was. How many have heard of the Black Mirror? Montezuma and the high priest had what was called a black mirror. Matter of fact, hold on. Can you guys see this mirror? This is an obsidian mirror. Their black mirror was obsidian. And this black mirror was also, doesn't that one omen sound like the mirror that was on the head? Because in fact, Montezuma had an obsidian mirror, a black mirror. And it is said that he would stare into the mirror and get visions. And this is a tool that Montezuma also used, and it's also verified by the omens. Now here is an image of one of the black mirrors that was recovered from the Spanish and brought back. And in fact, John Dee, a mystic of the 16th century, used these exact mirrors. They're in the British Museum, I believe. And so they did something what they call scrying. And basically, even John Dee says that he used this obsidian mirror to gaze into it, to receive information and visions. And Montezuma had this as well. And so besides the omens, besides the ancestral prophecy, he had these tools. So when Montezuma and Hernan Cortez met, it was not that he believed Cortez was a returning God. He knew that he was of this race of people that were coming, and it marked the end of their age of rulership. A lot of us sometimes can't understand that, right? So people, even some people today in Mexico, don't understand. They have a bad understanding of Montezuma because they believe what I told you earlier. But Montezuma was having to make tough decisions for protecting the treasure, right? And what is the treasure we're seeking? It was a good question asked yesterday morning. So it's not gold and silver and precious jewels. The treasure is far greater than that.